Well, here we are, Uncle Tom, Bob Jackowak. We're at the Franciscan Wheaton facility, the health facility down in the basement. We both exercise together. I was interesting the other day that I was sitting out there waiting for Dory to get done with her exercise program, and I met Bob, and some man came up to him and said, "Well, how's the atomic man doing?" And I looked, and what does that mean? So after they stopped their conversation, I said, "Excuse me, sir, what is the atomic man? What does that mean?" Bob, why don't you tell me what you told me?
Well, back in 1953, in I think February or March, I volunteered to go on the Yucca Flats for an atomic explosion, a ground explosion, and we were out in the desert about 3 weeks training, and then they blew up an atomic bomb, which is the largest bomb that was ever blown up around troops at that time. And I was 3,200 yards from ground zero when the bomb went off. Interesting part of it is that about an hour before they blew the bomb up, they told us to look out in a direction where the bomb's going to be blown from, and they're going to explode a 400-pound blockbuster, which was the largest bomb that the United States used during World War II. And when that went off, I mean, you could see a little flash and somewhat of a noise. But then an hour later, when they blew the atomic bomb up, that was probably the loudest noise that I ever heard in my life. They heard it broke some windows in Las Vegas, which is 43 miles away. They heard the noise in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they saw the smoke in California.
Yucca Flats is located in Utah, though, right?
Nevada.
Oh, Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you said that you were in there for training. What kind of training were they giving you at that time?
Well, when we went, it was strictly volunteer. I mean, they didn't make anybody go. And when we went, they talked about it. It was really the beginning of atomic warfare. Mm-hmm. What General Eisenhower, who was the president then, thought that the next war was going to be an atomic war. And this was preparing people for that. We trained as, in the infantry we had 9-man squads at that time, and when we were out on the desert we trained in 12-man squads. And our 12 men were in A and B teams. We trained in fire maneuver, which we never did with the other way. And we trained out in the desert all day long. And of course, by the time the bomb was going to be exploded, we were ready for it. But
you kind of knew what was going to happen.
They told us everything.
Oh, so they actually launched one before, so they knew.
Oh, they've blown them up before.
Okay,
but not that large with troops. But they told us everything that would happen, all the feelings we would get out of it. My group that I was with, they asked us to keep our eyes open, so they could see what the effect would be on the blast and the flash. And when the flash came, I was the squad leader at that time, and when the flash came, it closed I burnt my eyes closed, and I could see the 3 people kneeling in front of me in the squad. And when I opened my eyes, I could still see those people kneeling in front of me. And for about 2 weeks later, I still saw it before it wore off and got back to normal. And my hearing was very difficult for me to hear after that noise. The noise went off. And matter of fact, when I got back to my outfit, my battery commander told the first sergeant to give me 2 3-day passes to get me out of there. So they gave me 2 3-day passes, and I drove home to Wisconsin, spent a week at home.
How long before your hearing came back to normal?
Well, it got back probably a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, that's an exceptional story. Now, is it Yucca Flats?
Yucca Flats.
Yucca Flats. This is where they had the little city built. Is that the same one that I've seen on television,
yeah.
where the houses were destroyed and everything?
Yeah.
Were you in part of that?
Now, when I was there, they after the bomb went off, we went up and we did a fire maneuver and crawled within 1,100 yards of ground zero. And at 1,100 yards, they had goats and sheep and goats and sheep, and then they had military weapons that were old military weapons. The sheep were the side where the flash came from. Their fur was burnt off, and the military weapons were the machine gun with the wooden handles was burnt off. And they told us that the goats and sheep would probably die in 2 or 3 days.
But they didn't die immediately.
No,
wow.
There was nothing dead. Everything was alive that I saw at that point. Now later on, I guess they built this little city that they blew up, but that wasn't there. It was just open fields when I was there.
Okay. Wow, and this is in 1953?
53.
53.
And I think it's February or March of 53.
Now you were in the Army at this time, and you were in World War II also.
No.
No,
I went in 1948.
Okay.
And I spent 20 years in the Army.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
I retired a month after I was 37.
Oh boy. The government has been getting sued a lot because of this, right?
I don't know if they're getting sued a lot.
They tried.
They have a lot of people who are there that are making claims that they were exposed to radiation and everything else, and they're looking for VA benefits.
And what's your take on that? I talked to a nurse earlier today, and she was surprised to find out that you were there and you're still alive. Well, evidently there's been a lot of talk about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. In the 1970s, there was an article in Milwaukee newspaper where they were looking for what they called atomic veterans, anybody that was in an atomic explosion, because they wanted to interview them and that they should report to the hospital or the VA or someplace, wherever. And I went down. I went down to the VA hospital, and they run me through a bunch of tests and everything else. And they asked me if I had a bad leg at that time, and they asked me if my bad leg was due to the fact that I was in the explosion. I said no, and then I filled out a bunch of papers on and left it at that. And my name got to the Atomic Veterans Organization in Washington, D.C., and they would call me up on a telephone and call me up at least once a year and ask me how my health was and everything else. And, I mean, I never thought that anything that happened to me was because of the atomic explosion. I mean, what's happening to me now, I feel my age,
yeah.
And I look at it that way. But then, too, in the 70s, there was the University of Wisconsin contacted me, and they came to my house in Racine, and they interviewed me on the explosion, and they were surprised that the story I told them about my eyes being open and being so close to the explosion and everything. And they asked me if I thought that anything was any defect because of the bomb, and I said no. However, there were 2 people that were also in an explosion some other time that were in this tape that University of Wisconsin made. And both of them had claims out from the government for whatever cancer, I don't know. But what they did is they kept track of me for probably 20 years, and they sent me literature where what they did is I don't remember exact numbers anymore, but they figured say there was 18,000 of us that were in this explosion. They went to a city or a town in the United States that had approximately 18,000 people in it, and they checked both of them periodically. And at the end of 10 or 15 years, they found out that the ones that were in the explosion were healthier than the ones that were back in town, and had less cancer and everything else. And and that's how they compared what was going on. And of course, I thought it was an experience, and to me, it was an experience. But I never thought that anything was wrong with me because of that.
Was there anybody in your platoon that was there that day that did come down with cancer that you think might have been an unnatural way of doing it?
I don't know.
Oh, you never kept any touch
I
with
never
any?
kept track of anybody.
Okay. All right.